I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. Pretty damaging to constantly be in a comparison mindset.
You're never really maximizing your growth and your potential.
Discipline is not punitive.
That's not a punishment. It's developing grit.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Team Chip Podcast. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and we are excited to be here with you today. I have Miss Glyn Ann again. She's back. Hello. How are you today?
I'm great.
Is it an amazing day?
It is.
It's only amazing because I'm here, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to tell the truth. It got better when you came in the room.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, guys. So today we're going to do a quick talk here on kind of best effort versus best performance. Now, just to kind of put that in context, I think it's best effort is, what did I put into it? Effort. Mm-hmm. Best performance is, maybe external, kind of what it looked like from the outside, like performance, or maybe we're going to talk some about comparison, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. So, best effort versus best performance. Comparison is the thief of joy. Right?
Yeah. I actually thought until just relatively recently that was actually in the Bible. It is actually not. That is attributed to, that's kind of like that God won't give you anything you can't handle. That is nowhere in there. In the Bible either, so right? I thought, that's in the Bible somewhere. And actually it is not. It's actually attributed to Teddy Roosevelt. But mm-hmm. what is, and that I think is the direct kind of consequence of comparison is, and maybe not consequence is the wrong word, but is a reflection of comparison is envy. Envy, like I want that. But then what comparison ends up doing is instead of me having, it's also, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, maybe more in depth, but it's a very fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. It's a very much, you have it, I don't. They have it, I don't. This is why I can't. And it's just I'm shutting the door instead of, that Team Chip acronym, the inspiration part. Right. Instead of allowing for me to go, wow, look at what, they did, whatever right. that they is, whatever the person does that you go, wow, that's awesome. Instead of looking at it and being inspired and right. having that, okay, I can do better. I can improve. It's shutting the door and going, no more.
I think another piece of that too is having the self-worth and confidence to be proud for someone else.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
To be inspired, but also be proud for them. Like, man, they just had a great performance. Man,
absolutely.
They just killed. Man, they got first place. They won the grand champion, whatever, and be proud and not... when you talk about envious, I think of things in levels sometimes, but you're jealous and then you're envious. You know what I mean? I think in a way there's a difference. Like I'm jealous. I'm a little jealous. I like what I see over there. Maybe I wish I had some of that or whatever. And envy, I think, is a little nastier. It's like, oh, I'm envious of that. Like
and I don't even want you to have that.
I don't want you to have it. I just want to have it myself. So. We're kind of talking about, I guess we dove in a little head first, the kind of the pitfalls of comparison, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're, best, performance, and again, we kind of think of that as that right. external view of what's happening, and best effort being, more internally focused, right? Yeah. So, and I also think in terms of, internal locus of control and external locus of control, we need to focus internally and not so much externally. And again, best performance is that kind of outside view and caring too much about what other people think or caring too much about what they did versus what I did instead of focusing on best effort. And so part of the concept here, part of the idea here, I think today is, when we're dealing with our kids or we're martial arts instructors dealing with our students, kind of what are the pitfalls of focusing on other people in comparison versus just kind of focusing internally and, being better myself today than I was yesterday. Why is it, it's pretty damaging for people, period, much less kids, to constantly be in a comparison mindset, right?
Right. You think about even like in school, you become, I was talking about this with someone this morning. Whenever you say you're in school, you become a grade chaser.
Right.
You're not becoming a knowledge seeker. You're no longer teachable. You're no longer, looking to learn.
Right.
You become just that person that's just after the number, the score,
checking the box.
Yes. Checking the box. And you're never really maximizing your growth and your potential, and you're never really striving for excellence whenever you're seeking after the end point or that comparison.
It's so cliche, but not enjoying the journey, just focused on the destination.
That's right.
It's like,
That's right.
Oh, come on. So and I think another piece of this is comparison in my mind doesn't allow for failure. In a way, because if I'm always comparing myself, trying to be better than them, I can never lose. It kind of creates a mindset of I can never lose because I'm constantly comparing, and if I lose, it puts me in a negative space. It makes me feel bad about myself and all these things based on comparing to other people. But here's the point: losing is where learning happens.
Losing is learning. That the absolute best lessons in life, period, happen in struggle. The best spiritual growth happens in the middle of struggle, not in the times of plenty. It's in the times of where things are hard, and you lean, it's that lean not on your own understanding. That is, it's just so powerful to actually allow your kids, allow yourself to fail, but also let your kids see you fail. Let your kids, don't shelter them from that.
You just hit something huge, man. Be willing to share. All great leaders are transparent.
Absolutely.
And they're willing to share their failures.
Right.
And that is so unbelievably important that we share our failures, because when we share our failures, we show our human side too, right? And we kind of show our humanity, and it gives people that may be behind us in development the chance to go, oh, okay, it's okay to fail. They went through that too. Well, so maybe I'm not abnormal for feeling bad about losing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think back to like mentorship, and whenever you hear that people from the outside, talking about specifically that comparison, we were talking about the comparison being kind of that outside presentation.
Right.
Whenever I think about talking with mentors, and you on the outside think that they, quote, got it all together, and then they start to share some of the things that they've struggled with, or the challenges that they faced, whether it's in business or in their personal life or whatever, you kind of go, oh, okay. Yeah. And
Yes.
and so why do we sometimes think that we need to shelter our kids from those experiences?
Right.
From the, Mom, I forgot my homework, and you drop everything and you run to go take it to them and go, you know what? You're going to have to face that consequence.
Right.
Because life is full of consequences, and you have to teach them early in a very sheltered and maybe not sheltered is the wrong word, but in a protected environment where, facing a challenge is not a bad thing. Right. Facing a consequence is not a bad thing.
As a matter of fact, usually it's a good thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. Again, it's where we grow.
And but I think that it's kind of like, okay, how did we get into consequences and all that based on comparison? And the comparison part makes you make choices to avoid those consequences
100%.
And makes you make choices to avoid that. So that's how those go together.
Absolutely.
It's not like we've veered off onto another track. They actually are interrelated.
They're interrelated and they connect, right?
Yeah.
Some of the other issues with, living in that comparison kind of space, that comparison, constantly externally focused, comparing myself to other people, is you never feel accomplished. If you're always focused on what someone else did, you don't get the chance to feel accomplished because you live in kind of in the wrong headspace in a way.
Right.
And then you never feel good enough. You know what I mean? You're constantly comparing. So it's like, oh, they have this, they have that. And I think it's exacerbated. We've talked about this before so much by the curated pictures on social media.
Yeah.
Look at what I did. Look at what I have. And we're all guilty of curating pictures because we want people to see the best. But man, that's so misleading for our young guys when they're on. And that's why we're not fans of kids being on social media. It's just not the place that they need to be developing their mindsets, right?
Right, for sure. You know, the curation, I think just the fact that you acknowledge that and make sure that your kids actually understand that, and just, you know, all that, just because it glitters doesn't make it gold.
Right. Well, you know, we've kind of beat up the idea of living in that kind of comparison headspace and mindset. What's the other side of that? It's that kind of internal locus of control, that internal focus. It's that, am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I better this year than I was last year? Self-comparison, I think, is healthy, and we need some self-comparison. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of external comparison, like, hey, I saw what you did, but it needs to lead to inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we've already said.
It's a co-opetition. It's that cooperative, competitive,
right?
But it's also like, I can look at something that someone does that's amazing, and I can celebrate that for them, because and be so like, I can appreciate the effort that I know went into that it was not just dropped in their lap, and I can be excited for them. Or I can be that green with envy and be comparing, you know, woe is me, I don't have whatever that is, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not this. So it's just, it builds so much more positive, just a positive frame and positive attitude, and a grateful attitude.
Right.
Whenever, you know, gratitude is just massive in being in a positive headspace. And whenever you're constantly looking at what you don't have, what you can't do, how can you're just digging your hole deeper.
Right.
And, you know, that there's nothing good about that. And whenever you can celebrate other people's successes, you also, I mean, nobody wants to be around the person that's constantly going, well, they did X, Y, Z, or they did, you know, they did.
Right. Making excuses.
Nobody wants to be around the excuse maker, just that negative Nancy that's just constantly, comparing.
Right. So let's talk for just a minute. We've talked a lot about, you know, the comparison piece, kind of internally being focused, and a little bit of self-comparison, like measuring yourself as against yourself as opposed to other people. But what are some things that people out there can do? For instance, their kid comes home from school and they're talking in that comparison, external locus of control mindset, like, you know, gosh, Mom, today it was so unfair because, you know, Susie, you know, was able to do A, B, and C, and I couldn't. And, you know, what kind of steps do we take in those conversations as martial arts, you know, even instructors, whenever you hear the kids talking in a way they're comparing? How can we shift their mindset? What are things we can do?
Yeah,
there?
you can say, okay, do you feel like that we've practiced, you know, like, or that you've practiced on that, whatever the thing is? Do you feel like you've practiced on that as much as you possibly can? Mm-hmm. Well, the answer is always going to be no if they're honest. And if they do give you oh yes, I've absolutely practiced. Okay, so how many times have you practiced on that today?
Right.
And just ask questions. You don't have to. So I think the most powerful thing to do, rather than to teach to them, is to help them to ask questions that helps them to kind of discover whatever the it is. So that, I mean, that's just a way of helping people to get something without like just downloading information. Because a lot of times when you start just dumping information, they check out. But if you start asking questions, they have to reply.
Right.
And they have to, and then you have to hold them to being honest about those answers. Right. So asking them, so how much have you practiced on this? Mm-hmm. Well, no. Okay. So is that something that you kind of struggle with? Yes. Okay, so what can we do different to, you know, how can I help you? How can I help you with that? But then also, but saying something to the effect of, but isn't it, you know, they've been working on that. I've watched them improve in that. Isn't that cool that they've improved? You know, if this is something that's important to you, let's get to work. Yeah. You can do this.
Right.
And empowering them to realize that, you know, you can do anything if you're willing to put in the work.
Absolutely.
And putting in the work, that's the hard part.
Right.
And, you know, the willingness to work sometimes needs to have somebody that's on the backside reminding them that now remember, 3 months ago you said this was your goal. Let's keep pushing towards that.
Accountability.
And having somebody that's willing to help to remind you that you said this was important. Just because it's gotten hard doesn't mean that you get to change your mind.
Absolutely. Well, I think another thing that we can do too, and I love that, asking them questions and leading the conversation some instead of just talking down, talking to them. A lot of times people don't receive, but if you ask questions and you cause some actual thinking and processing to begin to happen, you help them to,
you help them to connect those dots in their head.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that takes discipline and effort on a parent or an instructor or a teacher's part to do that, right?
Yeah, because it's a whole lot easier to just say, you're just go. Just buck it up and do it.
That's right.
Let's go.
It takes a little extra time and a little extra bandwidth to sit down and go, hey, let's talk through this a little bit. Right. How about, did you do your part? Did you train? Yeah. And I think that's really powerful. Another thing I think that we can do too in those situations is share, and we've already talked about it a little bit, but share an example of where you went through the same struggle.
Yep.
And how did you solve that problem? Or how did you work your way through that? And kind of give them an example and let them know, I may be kind of your, for lack of better words, boss in this moment, but I went through the same things, very similar things. And here's how it worked out for me. And that gives them a sense of relief. Like, oh gosh, you struggled with that? We just thought you were always at this level, right? Yeah. And so it gives them an opportunity. And I think in martial arts, we have such a unique opportunity as martial arts instructors and on the mat, because a lot of what we do is, this code, perseverance and discipline and, courtesy and integrity and all of these things. But, perseverance and discipline, we are working on that all the time. And I do want to throw this out there because I think it's important. Sometimes when we hear the word discipline, people think punitive.
Right. It's not.
Discipline is not punitive. Discipline is my willingness to do what I need to do in the moment, my willingness to put in the work. That's discipline. And that's what we're trying to teach these guys. And so discipline is that determination to finish the goal, to get it done, right? And I think that's really powerful and important that we wrap our heads around that and help kids understand it.
Discipline is a transferable skill that will benefit every area of your life, whether it's your health, your fitness, your finances. Every area requires discipline, and it is not punitive. It is protective. It is a way that you're building. We had a meeting yesterday, and this phrase popped out, and I was like, oh, that's gold. And it was, that one of the things that discipline does is it helps you not exercise your quit muscle, but your grip muscle. And it helps you to keep going whenever it is hard. And that, that's not a punishment,
right?
To keep going when it's hard. That is it's developing grit.
Absolutely. Well, when a kid is, allowing comparison to be the thief of their joy, they're allowing you, and you're allowing that to happen. You're allowing them to exercise that quit muscle because they're walking towards the quit as opposed to the grit.
Yep.
And if we ask the right questions, maybe we can get their mindset shifted some and get them to put in the grit to get it right.
Yeah. And they're looking, that makes them look outward instead of what could I have done differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
So let's think in terms of, as a martial arts instructor, training, people for discipline, for perseverance, and for effort. How can we encourage our students to focus on giving their best and rather than comparing themselves? So, their best performance or their best effort, right?
Right.
And I think it's important that we teach about, perception and perspective. Our perspective on things becomes our reality, if that makes sense.
It just changed. It's the lens that you look through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the lens you look for. And some things that I think that we can do to help them to understand this is, and we've already kind of talked about it, but is like, review life with them, share with them the things that you've struggled with and had, you had trouble with and had to work through, that kind of parallels where they're at so they can see your humanity.
I think things that you can do specifically in a class is be sure, number one, that your praise is specific. It's not just a good job, and a good job is not, or, that was great. Mm-hmm. It's not just it's not that is wrong, but I absolutely loved the stick on your kick. I absolutely loved the way you engaged your hips on that punch. Or it's very specific. And then also giving them opportunities where they actually have to look for that in somebody else, and where they actually are allowed to, okay, I want you to give, you guys, you're with a partner, you do this. Okay, now tell your partner something they did awesome. Right, I love that. Focusing on what you did, but I'm looking for the good in somebody else, but I'm not just, I'm looking at and I'm presenting it in a way that's super positive. And sometimes, you can have kids that may not necessarily have ever had any kind of interact. They don't know each other. Right. And they're having to go, okay, you did good at, and just that the ability to find something good, because that's not something that they're doing at school. Right. In most days they're getting pointed out for a thing that was not good. And I'm not saying by the teachers necessarily. I'm saying by a lot of times by other kids. Right. They're getting pointed out for the fact that their shirt is a funny color, or whatever. And having them kind of train, you're almost training them to be good finders, to be looking for something that somebody else does that's good, and not be intimidated, or, you're not my value doesn't change by your success. Right. I'm not lessened if you succeed. I'm not heightened if you succeed. It's just like, you're awesome, good job, and we can reciprocate that. We can both be awesome. And we can both be awesome.
Very, very cool. I think something else is helping people in general to understand how important it is to get a very objective look at themselves and where they are in the moment. Sometimes we have a very inflated view of our ability in things very commonly. Yeah. Yeah. And trying to help people to understand, okay, perform that in a video and actually watch yourself objectively. Take your emotions out and go, you know what, I could have done that a little better. Okay, I feel good about that piece. I can't tell you how many times in the past you've held cameras for me and training for things, and I've looked and I've had two spectrums of thought. Sometimes I look and go, wow, I didn't know I could do that. And then sometimes I've looked and went, wow, that was awful. I need to get to work, right? And but being objective, I think that's huge, that we need to be able to help people to be objective. Another thing too, I think that's important here in getting them self-focused is goal setting. Teach them about goal setting and the importance of setting goals. It's cliche, but a day out, a week out, a month out, a year, 3, 5, 10, and help them to try to make the connections between how those 1 day habits and goals turn into that 10-year, did you make it or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And goal setting is absolutely huge. And having that accountability person that's helping you, reminding you of your goals is huge. But I think something else to remember in the goal is, we just keep coming back to comparison, but there's the popcorn analogy. You have a bag of popcorn and some of it just needed just a little bit more time. And the fact that it needed a little bit more time and they didn't quite pop at the exact same moment is not a bad thing. That's still amazing, the popcorn is still the popcorn. It just needs a little more time. And don't be discouraged as a parent just because your popcorn didn't pop quite at the same time. It needed another 6 weeks to
right. 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever that was. Right.
For the I'm thinking in terms of like belt testing specifically, but just because it needs a little more time is not a bad thing. Because the thing that's so cool, to kind of go back to the very beginning, we were talking about struggles, is some of the most solid martial artists that I know now. They went through a period of other people were popping and they weren't yet. And they persevered through that. And now they're absolutely amazing because they stuck it out and hung through that.
Right. Well, I think that's a kind of a good opportunity. I wanted to mention this, and I think it is kind of related and important. The structure of a lineup in a classroom that we typically in the traditional martial arts will, have the higher belts towards the front, the lower belts in the back. And I've found myself explaining that many times, like, why do y'all do that? Well, the higher belts in the front gives the lower belts or the less experienced in the back the opportunity to look forward and kind of up to what their potential is, right?
Right.
The problem with it can cause some comparison, right? But we have to be open and talking to them about this structure is intentional. It's not intended for you at 1 month to compare yourself against that student that's 1 year deep, right, in their training, but it's intended for you to be inspired,
right,
and to try to start building in them that mindset of being proud for other people and their ability and being inspired by it, instead of beat down and comparing, with them, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I love that structure myself, but I do think it's important that we help those people at the back to go, hey, I don't expect you to be this guy that's up here 5 years deep in their training, but I do expect you to give your best in this moment.
Right. And I think, it could potentially be a longer discussion, but, then you have that person that constantly thinks that they're whether it's them or their child is the one that is the top of the pile, and which is an absolutely wrong mentality to have, because I don't know a single person that doesn't have room for growth in something. And whenever you all of a sudden think that you're the epitome, your growth has stopped and you're going to get trucked.
Yes, absolutely. So let's kind of talk a little bit about, how can parents and instructors connect these lessons of effort to the students on like internal focus and internal effort, schoolwork, hobbies, home responsibilities, etc. I wanted to kind of right here talk a little bit about how it's important how we kudo kids for the results they're getting.
Yep. That actually goes straight into what I was just talking about. Whenever you start telling your kids that they're the bomb.com, that they're so smart, you are so talented, you are so, you are just the bomb diggity, then that is so negative.
You're right.
Actually,
absolutely.
It's not, because all of a sudden they think that they have to live up to that in every single thing, and they're not. And the other thing is, whenever something is if you've been told you're smart, whenever you run into something that is hard, all of a sudden you shut down.
It's really easy to shut down, right?
I think back to, we had some these two brothers that came in, and one of them in particular things were intellectually, school-wise, very easy.
Right.
And his parents specifically wanted him to do something that would challenge him,
right,
because they knew he needed to feel a challenge. And that's the thing, whenever you're constantly telling your kids how great they are, whenever things aren't great, then what are they going to do? So the better thing to do is, I absolutely loved how hard you worked today. Look at your sweaty head. That's just that's that. Let me sweat. We would joke all the time. Let me sweat check. Oh my gosh, your hair is dripping. That's amazing. You worked so hard, and kudo their work.
I wanted to jump in here real quick and say, if you want to go deeper as a parent or an instructor on this, there's a great book called Mindset.
Yep.
By Carol Dweck that goes very deep. Another book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. I really kind of fell in love with those books because they really kind of dig into this concept right here, and it's powerful. But just some things not to say to your kids, we need to train ourselves to kudo our kids for effort. We've already kind of talked about that, not the result, but the work that they put in. So do not say these things. Do not say, I love that you are talented. Do not say you're a natural. Do not say you are so smart. Do not say this is easy for you. I get how you want to say those things, and it feels right.
Yeah, you feel like you're building up their self-esteem, and you're that's so, we see that all the time. Okay, you got to tell them that they're amazing. But actually, the thing that you're doing by saying, oh my gosh, you are so smart, by doing that, then whenever they do run into something that they're having trouble with, the tendency is to shut down, to think, I'm actually not smart. My mom always told me that I'm so smart. Right. My mom always told me that I'm so strong.
I should not be struggling right now.
Right.
And if they've never worked through something, they don't know how. They don't know how to break that down and go, okay, it's okay. I'm grinding my way through this. So I'm going to give you some thoughts on some things to say.
Yep.
These are just examples, just thoughts, but instead of those things that you do not say things like this. I love how you worked so hard to accomplish that. Your effort to be good at that is paying off. Your effort to be good at that is paying off. All the reading and homework you're doing is really showing.
Yep.
You made that look easy because of all the work you've put in. You're still saying the same thing, but you're putting it in a context of they understand it was the work that did it, not just like a natural.
Yeah, talent. It's the lens that you're looking through instead of looking through you're changing the focus from it's all about what you are. It's about the work that you did and the work that you've done and the preparation that you've put into it, but not about you're this brilliant, perfect person.
This gets shut down at the first sign of any difficulty in life.
Yeah.
So, in a martial arts school, even in a business, how do we create a culture that encourages that hard work and that effort? I was reading a book a few years ago. I don't remember the book.
I don't either, but I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It was a ladies college soccer coach, and some of you may go, oh, I know who that is. But he took the women's team like 8-10 years, almost back to back, maybe missed like 1 year, making like the national championship. So it was like a really big deal. And he talks about in there, it was kind of the concept was talking about excellence. It was like, there's tons of ingredients to excellence, but there are two that are really key. And this was a huge like boom for me when I read this years ago. The first one is there has to be a challenge. To get excellence out of somebody, you have to have a challenge, right?
Yep.
And the second one is there has to be unwavering support. And I thought, wow, how those juxtapose is very interesting, like a challenge, but unwavering support. And so we've really worked hard at Team Chip to build a culture of unwavering support.
Right. That's, you're letting them practice that by every time somebody, does something. A key with unwavering support is it does have to be genuine. You don't celebrate somebody that's flopping on the floor. You're celebrating the actual, the effort, the drive, you're celebrating whenever somebody is actually struggling doing 20 push-ups and they're struggling on the last 5 and they're struggling. They're like struggling, but you're celebrating them completing it. You see the difference in flop and effort. Absolutely. And you're celebrating that. So that and also the high fives, whenever I have somebody celebrating me and I'm going through a challenge, then I'm more likely to celebrate them in return.
And we started really early.
Absolutely.
Like from day one, we're already telling them, hey, if you see somebody do something that looks awesome, give them a high five clap for them when it's an appropriate time in the class, or give them a pat on the back or tell them good job. And so we really work hard to build this intentional culture and mindset of unwavering support. It's so much easier because sometimes, remember, challenge and unwavering support, sometimes the challenge is just walking through the door, just showing up. You've had a hard day at work, a hard week, you've lost a family member. There's just all these things that can happen. The challenge can just be showing up. But it's much easier to show up when you are confident that there's unwavering support waiting for you.
Well, and I think that the unwavering support trickles from the mat, but also to the people that are watching on the sideline. Absolutely. Because whenever you have everybody on the mat celebrating someone doing something, and the parents at the side, instead of only cheering for their kid, start cheering for every kid. Absolutely. And it's that community of support and encouragement that is so, so, so powerful versus, I'm beelined, only focused on what my kid is doing and everybody else is irrelevant. No, you're actually like encouraging everybody. So it trickles over. And then I'm less likely whenever I'm doing that to get in the car and go, did you see what they were doing? You weren't doing that. I'm less likely to be that voice of that as a parent.
Because we know kids don't quit martial arts on the mat. Kids quit martial arts on the ride home.
And the ride home, yeah. And, sometimes it's those conversations of, why did you let so-and-so go kick faster than you? Why did you let so-and-so? And if I'm actively part of that culture of challenge and I'm part of the unwavering support, then I'm not being, I'm not modeling it.
Absolutely. And I think this is another important piece. We push to the best of our ability to be a feedback culture.
Yeah.
Right. So a culture of challenge and unwavering support, but a culture of feedback as well. We constantly ask for feedback. We go to events, we do things, we run things, we work here. We always ask before we leave or in some sort of follow-up, how did we do? Was it okay? Was there anything that we missed? Or, we want to hear, and we hate it whenever we get that negative nugget. It's like, but
we don't go.
But
we also say thank you. We like 100%. Thank you because this is the only way we can get better.
Yeah,
this is the only way.
Absolutely. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Metrics, surveys, tracking what happened and objectively looking at it, not subjectively, but objectively looking, stepping out of your emotions and just going, okay, logically, there's truth to that. We weren't our best right there, and we can do better in that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's super important that we build those things. So, I hope you had a great, podcast. I hope you enjoyed the nuggets today. Best effort, internal, what effort I put in, and how we encourage that and build that culture versus best kind of performance, maybe an external look at it, like how it looked from the outside. And helping kids not to live in a life of comparison.
Right.
Comparison, again, is that thief of joy. Any last wisdom, wise thoughts from you on this, building this culture or building people that have that growth mindset and live in a world of kind of objectivity versus subjectivity and, comparison?
Yeah, I think it's just, if you're an adult student, someone else's success doesn't put shade on you.
Yeah, it doesn't devalue.
No, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. And letting somebody, and success looks different. Success is not what success is. Let's not focus on what it's not. But success is, like you said, sometimes success is walking in the door. Today was a really hard day at work, and I said, you know what? My uniform is in my car. I'm going to class.
Right.
And so just understanding that if I'm comparing to somebody else, I'm stealing from myself.
Absolutely.
And you're not hurting anybody but you. So just would definitely encourage people to just to not compare, and to just the other side is that we talked about it earlier. The don't let them practice their quit muscle.
Right. Practice the grit muscle, not the quit muscle. Yep. I love that. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. Lots of good positivity and good nuggets. And remember, these aren't judgment. We're not judging anybody at all. We truly put these out here because we hope that you can find just a golden nugget in it that can help you move your needle in some way that makes life better, helps you to perform at a higher level, etc., and be a better parent, instructor, teacher, entrepreneur, whatever that is. We can't do this without you guys. So please, we have our podcast on YouTube now. Subscribe to them. Rate them for us. Give us some feedback. We would love to hear from you guys. You can search up the Chip Townsend on most social media platforms and find me. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you'd like to hear about. And we are eternally grateful for everybody that jumps in and listens and gives us some feedback, whether it's positive or negative. We need it.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate you all. Hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review because we need you. We appreciate you so much. And without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success. So go out there and never be outworked.